The cake sat in the center of the table, covered in pristine white frosting and delicate sugar flowers. 40 candles flickered in the dim light of our dining room. My husband Marcus smiled at me from across the table, his hand resting possessively on my shoulder. My sister-in-law Diana stood beside him, phone raised to capture the moment. My mother-in-law Constance watched from her wheelchair near the window. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice dripping with sweetness that should have warned me. I closed my eyes. After 16 years of marriage, what did I wish for? I wished for things to go back to how they were before Marcus started coming home late, before the mysterious charges on our joint credit card, before my sister-in-law moved into our guest house and started acting like she owned the place. I blew out the candles. Everyone clapped. Diana cut me a generous slice, the corner piece, my favorite, with extra frosting roses. She placed it on the fine china we only used for special occasions. The plate felt heavy in my hands. "Go on, sis," Diana urged, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I made it specially for you. Your favorite red velvet with cream cheese frosting." I lifted the fork. The first bite hit my tongue, and something was immediately wrong. Beneath the sweetness, there was a bitter, chemical undertone. My stomach turned. "It tastes strange," I said, setting down my fork. Marcus's hand tightened on my shoulder. "Don't be rude, Tasha. Diana worked all afternoon on this cake." "I'm not being rude. There's something—" "Just eat it," Constance snapped from her wheelchair. "Always so ungrateful. Diana puts in all this effort, and you complain." I looked around the table. Marcus's jaw was clenched. Diana's smile had frozen on her face. Even my own mother-in-law was glaring at me with undisguised hostility. A cold realization washed over me. They wanted me to eat this cake. They needed me to eat it. "I need to check something in the kitchen," I said, standing abruptly. "Tasha," Marcus started. But I was already moving, my heart pounding. I pushed through the swinging door into our kitchen. On the counter, next to the mixer still coated with frosting, sat an empty bottle. I picked it up, my hands shaking. Antifreeze. The label was still visible. Ethylene glycol. Danger. Poison. Fatal if swallowed. My vision blurred. The bottle slipped from my fingers and clattered against the granite countertop. Behind me, I heard the dining room door swing open. "Tasha?" It was Marcus. "What are you doing in here?" I turned slowly, the empty antifreeze bottle clutched in my hand. "What is this?" His face went pale, then red. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I can explain." "Explain?" My voice came out as a scream. "You tried to poison me. On my birthday, with my favorite cake." Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Marcus recovered quickly, his expression shifting from panic to cold calculation. "You're being hysterical. That antifreeze is for the car. Diana must have left it on the counter by accident." "By accident? Next to the cake mixer?" "Tasha, listen to yourself. You sound paranoid." He took a step toward me. "Maybe you should lie down. You've been under a lot of stress lately." That's when Diana appeared in the doorway, concern painted across her features like stage makeup. "Is everything okay?" we heard shouting. I held up the bottle. "Did you put antifreeze in my birthday cake?" Diana's eyes widened in what I would have sworn was genuine shock if I hadn't seen the empty bottle, if I hadn't tasted the bitter chemical hiding under all that sugar. "What? Tasha, no. I would never. Why would you even think that?" "Because it was sitting right here, next to the mixer, next to the frosting bowl." Marcus moved between us, playing the protective brother. "Diana, go check on Mother. Tasha's not feeling well." "I'm feeling perfectly fine," I snapped. "And I'm calling the police." I reached for my phone, but Marcus was faster. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging into my skin hard enough to bruise. "You're not calling anyone. You're going to calm down, go upstairs, and sleep this off. In the morning, we'll laugh about this whole misunderstanding." I yanked my arm free. "Misunderstanding? You tried to kill me." "Prove it," Marcus said quietly. His eyes were flat, emotionless. This was a side of my husband I'd never seen before, or maybe I had, and I'd been too trusting to recognize it. The bottle was in the garage. Could have been there for weeks. You're the one who brought it into the kitchen. Diana's cake is perfectly fine. Look. He grabbed my half-eaten slice from the dining room and took a large bite. See? Delicious. No poison. You're imagining things. But I wasn't imagining the taste. And I wasn't imagining the look that had passed between Marcus and Diana when I first said the cake tasted strange. I needed to get out of this house. Now. I'm going for a drive, I said, moving toward the garage door. Marcus blocked my path. No, you're not. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Give me your keys. Get out of my way. Tasha, I'm trying to help you. I shoved past him and ran for the front door instead. Behind me, I heard Diana's voice, high-pitched and concerned. Marcus, should we call Dr. Chen? Maybe she needs medication. I slammed the door behind me and ran to my car, fumbling with the keys. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw them standing in the doorway, Marcus, Diana, and Constance in her wheelchair, all watching me leave, all wearing the same expression. Not concern, not confusion. Disappointment. I drove to the one place I knew I'd be safe, my best friend Keisha's apartment across town. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? I told her everything. The strange-tasting cake, the antifreeze bottle, Marcus's reaction. As I spoke, Keisha's expression grew darker and darker. We need to call the police, she said immediately. And tell them what? That I found an empty antifreeze bottle in my kitchen? Marcus already set up his defense. He ate some of the cake himself to prove it was safe. If I call the police now, they'll think I'm crazy. Or worse, they'll think I put the antifreeze there myself, for attention. Keisha paced her small living room. Okay. Let's think about this. Why would they want to poison you? What would they gain? I don't know. We don't have much money. Marcus works in middle management at a tech company. We're comfortable, but we're not rich. I stopped. Something had just clicked in my mind. What? Keisha asked. What is it? My Uncle Terrence, I whispered. He died 6 months ago. I remember. You went to the funeral in Atlanta. He had no children, no wife. His will was supposed to be read last month, but the lawyers kept delaying. They said there were complications with the estate. Keisha sat down beside me. How much are we talking about? I don't know exactly, but Uncle Terrence owned commercial real estate all over the Southeast. Shopping centers, office buildings. He always lived simply, invested everything. When I was little, he used to joke that I'd be rich someday. And if you died, Marcus would inherit everything as my spouse. The pieces were falling into place now, forming a picture so ugly I could barely look at it. Last week, Marcus asked me to update our will. He said we should make sure everything was in order now that we're in our 40s. I thought he was just being responsible. Jesus, Tasha. There's more. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my photos. Look at this. I showed her a picture from 3 months ago, a family dinner at an expensive steakhouse. Marcus and Diana sitting close together, his hand on her knee under the table. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. They were siblings. They were close. But now, looking at the image with fresh eyes, I saw something else. The way Diana leaned into him. The way Marcus's thumb moved in small circles on her inner thigh. The way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. Oh my God, Keisha breathed. You don't think... I don't know what to think, but I know I can't go back to that house. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Keisha grabbed my hands. You're staying here. Tomorrow, we're calling a lawyer. And we're going to figure out exactly what you're entitled to from your uncle's estate. That night, lying on Keisha's couch, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the cake, about the antifreeze, about the way my own family had looked at me when I refused to keep eating. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Where are you? Come home. We need to talk. I didn't respond. Another message. You're worrying, Mother. She's upset. You know her heart can't take stress. Still. I said nothing. A third message. Fine. Be childish. But we both know you overreacted. There was nothing in that cake. You've been under so much pressure at work. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Chen about anxiety medication. I blocked his number. In the morning, Keisha made coffee while I called the law firm handling Uncle Terrence's estate. It took 3 transfers before I finally reached the right attorney. Miss Chen, well, Mrs. Holloway now, I suppose, the lawyer said. I was actually going to call you this week. The estate has been settled. I have your inheritance check ready. How much? $4.3 million. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. $4.3 million? Yes. Your uncle's real estate portfolio sold for significantly more than initially appraised. After taxes and fees, your portion comes to... Did anyone else know about this? My husband, maybe? Well, we did send notice to your home address, a certified letter about 6 weeks ago. Someone signed for it. Let me check. A Diana Holloway? My sister-in-law. She'd known for 6 weeks. She'd signed for the letter and never told me. I need that check delivered somewhere secure, I said. Not to my home address. I gave them Keisha's address and hung up. $4.3 million, Keisha repeated slowly. They tried to kill you for $4.3 million. They knew. Diana got the letter, showed it to Marcus, and they planned this whole thing. The birthday party, the cake, probably even Constance being there as an alibi. Poor Marcus, his wife died right in front of his elderly mother. My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Tasha? It was Constance, my mother-in-law. Where are you? Marcus is beside himself with worry. I'm safe. You need to come home. We need to talk about last night. You embarrassed Diana terribly. She made that cake with love, and you accused her of trying to poison you. The poor girl cried for hours. Tell Diana, I said. The antifreeze was a nice touch. Very creative. Constance's voice turned cold. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Marcus has been a good husband to you for 16 years. He deserves better than these hysterical accusations. How long have you known? I asked quietly. Known what? About Marcus and Diana. Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You knew about the inheritance too, didn't you? Did you help them plan it? The timing of my birthday party, having you there in your wheelchair, playing the frail grandmother who couldn't possibly be involved in anything sinister? You sound mentally unstable. Marcus is right, you need professional help. Did they promise you a cut? Or are you just that devoted to your precious son that you'd help him murder his wife? Constance hung up. Keisha had been listening to my half of the conversation. What now? Now I need proof. Real, undeniable proof that they tried to kill me. Because right now, it's my word against theirs. And I'm the one who sounds crazy. I thought for a moment. The cake. They saved the rest of it, right? For leftovers. Marcus always insists on saving desserts. So if there's antifreeze in that cake, we can prove it. We just need to get a sample to a lab. How are you going to get back into your house? I smiled grimly. I'm not, but I know someone who can. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Patricia Chen, no relation to my doctor. She was a retired teacher who lived next door and had a key to our house for emergencies. Tasha, I was so worried about you. Marcus said you'd gone to visit your cousin in Charleston? He did? Yes, this morning. He seemed very stressed, poor man. Said you'd had a fight and left without your phone charger or your medication. So Marcus was already building his narrative. Poor, devoted husband, dealing with an unstable wife. Mrs. Chen, I need a favor. Could you go into my house, tell Marcus you need to borrow something? Anything, and bring me back a piece of that birthday cake? Just a small sample. Your birthday cake? Why, please. I can't explain right now, but it's important. Life or death important. Mrs. Chen agreed. Bless her. 2 hours later, she arrived at Keisha's apartment with a small Tupperware container. I told him I wanted the recipe, she said, handing it to me. He seemed very eager to give me some, said Diana would be thrilled that someone appreciated her baking. I bet he was eager. He probably thought he'd convinced me I was crazy, that I'd come crawling back home full of apologies. Keisha found a private lab that could do toxicology testing. We dropped off the sample that afternoon with instructions to rush the results. 3 days later, I had my proof. The lab report confirmed traces of ethylene glycol antifreeze in the cake sample. Not enough to kill someone outright, but enough to make them seriously ill. Combined with what I'd already eaten, a full slice would have sent me to the hospital at minimum. It's a slow poison, the lab technician explained. The symptoms come on gradually: nausea, dizziness, kidney failure. In a few days, you would have been too sick to realize what was happening. By the time you got to the hospital, it might have been too late. Armed with the lab report, I finally went to the police. The detective assigned to my case was a woman in her 50s named Sergeant Valerie Ross. She listened to my story without interrupting, her expression neutral. "And you still have the cake sample?" she asked when I finished. "Yes. And the lab report." "What about the antifreeze bottle?" "I left it in the house when I ran. But I took photos." I showed her the pictures on my phone, clear images of the bottle sitting next to the cake mixer. Sergeant Ross studied the photos. "These are time-stamped from your birthday. That's good. And you're certain your husband and sister-in-law knew about your inheritance?" "The certified letter was signed by Diana 6 weeks before my birthday. I have the tracking information from the law firm. That establishes motive." She leaned back in her chair. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm going to be straight with you. This is a strong circumstantial case, but it's not airtight. Your husband will claim the antifreeze was in the garage, that he had no idea it was near the food preparation area. He'll say you're making this up because you're angry about something else, an affair, maybe, or financial problems. So you're saying you can't help me. I'm saying we need more. Do you have any idea if they discussed this plan? Any emails, text messages, recorded conversations? I don't know. I've been staying with my friend. I haven't been back to the house." "Then that's what we need to find. Some communication between your husband and his sister about the inheritance, about planning something for your birthday. Without that, this is going to be a he said, she said situation, and those are difficult to prosecute." I left the police station feeling deflated, but not defeated. Sergeant Ross had given me a roadmap. I needed evidence of premeditation. I needed to prove Marcus and Diana had planned this together. That night, Keisha and I hatched a plan. "You need to go back," she said. "Act like you were overreacting. Apologize, get back into the house and back into their trust. Then you gather evidence." "You want me to go back to the people who tried to kill me and pretend everything's fine?" "You have to. It's the only way." She was right, and I hated it. The next morning, I sent Marcus a text from a new phone number. "I'm sorry. You were right. I've been under too much stress. Can we talk?" His response came within minutes. "Thank God, yes. Come home. We'll work this out. I love you." I almost threw up reading those last 3 words. I drove to our house that afternoon. Marcus opened the door before I could even knock, pulling me into a tight embrace that made my skin crawl. "I was so worried," he murmured into my hair. "When you left like that, I thought you might hurt yourself." "I'm sorry," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I don't know what came over me. The cake tasted funny, and I saw that bottle, and I panicked." "It's okay, baby, it's okay." He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands. "Diana feels terrible. She thinks you hate her." "I don't hate her." I was confused and scared. "Is she here?" I should apologize. "She's in the guest house. Why don't you go talk to her while I make us some tea? Then we can all sit down together and put this behind us." I walked across our backyard to the converted guest house where Diana had been living for the past 8 months. She answered on the first knock, her expression carefully neutral. "Tasha." "I'm sorry," I said, forcing tears into my eyes. "It wasn't hard, I just thought about what they'd tried to do to me. I was so stressed and paranoid. The cake was delicious. I don't know why I freaked out like that." Diana's face softened. "It's okay, sis. I understand. You've been working so hard, and with Marcus's mother needing more care, we've all been under pressure." She hugged me, and I hugged her back, memorizing every detail of this moment so I could use it against her later. Over tea in our kitchen tea, I watched Marcus prepare and didn't drink. We talked about moving forward and healing as a family. I played the repentant wife perfectly. I even suggested we go to couples therapy, which Marcus agreed to with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. "I just want us to be happy again," he said, taking my hand. "Like we used to be." "Me too," I lied. That night, After Marcus fell asleep, I waited 2 hours to be sure. Then I carefully slid out of bed and went to his study. His laptop sat on his desk, still logged in. Idiot. I started with his email, searching for anything related to inheritance, Terrence, or Diana. Nothing obvious came up, but I downloaded everything to a flash drive anyway. Then I checked his text messages. He'd been careful to delete most of them, but he'd forgotten about his iPad, which synced automatically with his phone. The iPad still had messages going back months. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. I found what I needed in a thread from 7 weeks ago, right after Diana would have received the certified letter about the inheritance. Diana, you need to see this. Call me when T is asleep. Marcus. Is it what we thought? Diana. Better. Much better. But we need to talk in person. The next message was from 2 days later. Marcus. Mom agrees it's the best solution. Clean. No questions. Diana. Her birthday is perfect timing. I'll take care of everything. You just need to make sure she eats it. Marcus. What about afterward? Diana. Grief. You'll be devastated. Sell the house. Split everything 50/50 like we agreed. Then we can finally be together the way we should have been all along. I took photos of every message with my phone, my hands shaking so badly I had to take several shots to get clear images. There was more. Plans for how to stage my death to look natural. A discussion about whether to use rat poison or antifreeze. They decided antifreeze because it was tasteless when properly mixed into strong flavors. A debate about how much to use enough to make me sick immediately so I'd die in the hospital and they'd have witnesses, or a smaller amount over time to simulate natural organ failure. They'd chosen the immediate approach, more dramatic, more believable. I kept reading, kept photographing, even as I wanted to scream. There were older messages too, from months before Uncle Terrence died. Messages about how they'd been in love since Marcus and I got married. How they'd had to hide their true feelings all these years. How I was in the way of their happiness. Marcus, my husband of 16 years, had been sleeping with his own sister since the beginning, maybe even before the beginning. I thought I might be sick. I ran to the bathroom and barely made it to the toilet before I vomited. When the heaving stopped, I rinsed my mouth and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me had been a fool. She'd trusted. She'd believed in family. She'd never questioned why her sister-in-law was always around, why her husband insisted Diana move into the guest house after her divorce, why Constance was so protective of her precious children. But that woman was gone now. In her place was someone harder, someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. I copied the rest of the messages, including explicit photos they'd exchanged and detailed plans about what they'd do with my inheritance once I was dead. By the time I was finished, I had enough evidence to bury them both. I went back to bed and lay next to Marcus, listening to him snore. His arm was draped across my waist, possessive even in sleep. Tomorrow, I would go back to Sergeant Ross. I would give her everything, and then I would watch as Marcus and Diana's perfect little plan imploded in their faces. But tonight, I allowed myself one moment of satisfaction. I leaned close to Marcus's ear and whispered, so softly he couldn't possibly hear. Checkmate. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing was wrong. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, fresh fruit. Marcus ate gratefully, complimenting the food between bites. See, he said, smiling at me across the table. This is nice. This is what I missed while you were gone. I missed it too, I said sweetly. I was thinking maybe we should plan a trip, somewhere special, to celebrate everything. Celebrate? Our marriage, getting through this rough patch, moving forward together. His smile widened. I'd love that. Where were you thinking? I don't know yet. Let me do some research. Maybe somewhere tropical? We haven't had a real vacation in years. What I didn't tell him was that this research involved meeting with Sergeant Ross, my lawyer, and a forensic accountant to trace exactly where Marcus had already moved our joint assets in preparation for my death. Because, while I'd been gathering evidence of the attempted murder, I'd also noticed something else in those messages. Marcus had been systematically draining our joint accounts and hiding money in offshore accounts under Diana's name. He'd been planning this for months. The poisoning was just the final step. At 10 a.m., I told Marcus I had a dentist appointment. Instead, I drove straight to the police station. Sergeant Ross's eyes widened as I showed her the messages, the photos, the financial transfers. "This is, Mrs. Holloway, this is exactly what we needed. This proves premeditation, conspiracy, attempted murder. We can arrest them both today." "Not yet," I said. "What?" "I want to catch them in the act. I want them to confess on record. Can you wire me?" Sergeant Ross looked skeptical. "That's risky. If they suspect anything..." "They won't. They think I'm stupid. They think I've forgiven them and moved on. Give me a wire and I'll get you a full confession." She agreed, reluctantly. 2 hours later, I left the police station wearing a recording device hidden in my bra. That night, I invited Diana over for dinner. "Just the three of us," I said. "A new start." She arrived with wine, and that same fake smile she'd been wearing for 16 years. "I'm so glad we're doing this," she gushed, hugging me. "Family is everything." "It really is," I agreed. Over dinner, which I'd catered because I wasn't about to eat anything Diana or Marcus prepared, I steered the conversation toward Uncle Terence. "I still can't believe he's gone," I said. "We were so close when I was little. He used to say I reminded him of his mother." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Didn't he leave you something in his will?" I thought I heard. "Oh, that got delayed," I said casually. "The lawyers are still sorting out his estate. Something about property disputes with his business partners. Could be months before it's settled." I watched Diana's face carefully. A flicker of something surprise, confusion, crossed her features before she smoothed it away. "That's too bad," she said. "I'm sure whatever he left you will be meaningful, though. He obviously cared about you very much." "He did. He was family." I paused. "Real family. The kind you can trust." Marcus reached across the table for my hand. "You can trust us, Tasha. We're your family, too. We love you." "Do you?" I asked softly. "Of course. Why would you even question that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if people are who they say they are. Like, for instance, what if someone spent years pretending to love me while secretly planning to? I don't know. Take everything I have?" The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Diana laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's a dark thought. Where's this coming from?" "Just something I've been thinking about. Since the birthday cake incident." Marcus's hand tightened on mine. "We talked about this. You apologized. I thought we were moving past it." "We are. I'm just saying hypothetically, what would you do if you found out someone close to you, someone you trusted completely, had been lying to you for years?" "Tasha, because I would want proof, you know? I wouldn't want to accuse someone without being absolutely certain. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? To falsely accuse someone of something so awful?" Diana stood abruptly. "I should go. I have an early morning tomorrow." "Sit down, Diana." My voice was steel. She froze. "We're not done yet. See, I've been doing some thinking. About trust. About family. About birthday cakes and certified letters and offshore bank accounts in the Cayman Islands." Marcus's face went white. How did I know? Because I'm not the stupid, trusting fool you both thought I was." "Well, I was, but not anymore." I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. "I've been recording this conversation, just like I recorded all your text messages, all your plans, all your disgusting, incestuous scheming." Diana lunged for the phone, but I was faster, snatching it back. "The police already have copies," I said calmly. "This is just backup." And speaking of the police, right on cue, Sergeant Ross entered through our back door with 4 uniformed officers. "Marcus Holloway, Diana Holloway. You're both under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud." I'll never forget the look on their faces. The shock, the betrayal, the rage. Marcus started to protest, started to spin some story, but Sergeant Ross cut him off. "We have the text messages, the financial records, the lab results from the cake, and most importantly, we have Mrs. Holloway's recording from tonight, where you both essentially admitted to planning her murder." "She tricked us!" Diana screamed. "That recording is inadmissible." "Actually, my lawyer said, stepping in from the hallway. In this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording. Mrs. Holloway consented. The recording is perfectly legal. As the officers handcuffed them both, Marcus looked at me with something like admiration. I underestimated you, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. You did. They led him away. Diana was still screaming, demanding her lawyer, threatening to sue me for defamation. Constance, who'd been listening from the living room, sat in her wheelchair with tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to your own family? She asked me. How could they? I shot back. Your son and daughter tried to murder me for money. They've been committing incest for 16 years. And you knew. The messages prove you knew. You helped them plan it. I want my lawyer, Constance said, her voice suddenly cold and steady. Not so frail after all. You'll need one, Sergeant Ross said. You're under arrest too. As they took her away, had to get a special van for the wheelchair, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Diana had baked that poisoned cake, and I finally let myself cry. Not from sadness, from relief. Keisha arrived 20 minutes later and held me while I shook. It's over, she kept saying. You're safe now, it's over. But it wasn't over. Not quite. The trial took place 4 months later. In that time, I'd filed for divorce, moved into a new condo using my inheritance, and started therapy to process the trauma of learning that my entire marriage had been a lie. Marcus's lawyer tried every trick in the book. He claimed I'd fabricated the text messages, that the antifreeze in the cake was a mistake, cross-contamination from the garage, that his client was a devoted husband whose mentally unstable wife had turned against him. But the evidence was overwhelming. The lab results, the messages, the financial transfers, my recording from that final dinner. And most damning of all, Diana broke under pressure and turned state's witness, admitting to everything in exchange for a lighter sentence. She told the court about their relationship that had started when Marcus and I were dating, how they'd been careful to hide it all these years, how when they learned about my inheritance, they saw their chance to be together openly and wealthy. We thought we'd finally be free, Diana said, crying on the witness stand. We thought once Tasha was gone, we could be a real couple. No more hiding, no more pretending. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus got 25 years. Diana got 15. Constance, as an accessory, got 5 years and forfeiture of her home, which had been purchased with money Marcus had stolen from our joint accounts. I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge, just emptiness. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Vanessa Wu, patted my shoulder as we left. You did the right thing, she said. They would have killed you. They would have gotten away with it. You saved your own life. I know. And you're $4.3 million richer. I'd give it all back if I could have had one real day, I said. One day where someone actually loved me, instead of plotting my death. Vanessa stopped walking. Tasha, look at me. You're 40 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. You have money, you have freedom, and you have the knowledge that you're strong enough to fight back. That's more than a lot of people get. She was right. I knew she was right. But that night, lying alone in my new condo, I couldn't help but think about the girl I'd been at 24, the girl who'd married Marcus, believing in happily ever after, the girl who'd welcomed Diana as a sister, the girl who'd never questioned, never suspected, never protected herself. That girl was dead. Poisoned, not by antifreeze, but by betrayal. The woman who replaced her, though she was a survivor. 6 months after the trial, I was reorganizing my new home office when I found an old photo album. Pictures from my wedding. Marcus in his tux, looking so handsome. Diana as my maid of honor, her smile bright and genuine looking. I flipped through the pages, studying each image with new eyes. There, Marcus's hand on Diana's waist during the reception, just a second too long. There, Diana watching me with something almost like pity. There, Constance whispering something to them both while I danced with my father. The signs had been there all along. I'd just been too trusting to see them. I closed the album and walked it straight to the trash chute. That night, Keisha came over with wine and takeout. I have news, she said, grinning. Remember that organic market owner from the other story you told me about? The one who helped that woman after her divorce? Vaguely? Well, I was thinking you love cooking. You have startup money. What if you opened your own restaurant? I stared at her. I've never run a business. So? You survived attempted murder and put 3 people in prison. How hard can running a restaurant be? It was absurd. It was impulsive. It was perfect. 3 months later, I signed the lease on a small cafe in downtown. I called it Second Chances and specialized in comfort food with a twist, the kind of food that makes you feel safe, the kind of food that reminds you that not everything in life is poison. On opening night, Mrs. Chen from my old neighborhood came, bringing 6 friends. "I'm so proud of you," she said, squeezing my hands. "Look at you, starting fresh, building something beautiful from all that ugliness." "Thank you," I said, "for everything, for getting me that cake sample, for believing me when it sounded crazy." "You were never crazy, dear. You were smart. You trusted your instincts." The restaurant did well, better than well. Within a year, I'd opened a 2nd location, then a 3rd. People magazine did a feature on me. From attempted murder victim to restaurant empire, one woman's recipe for revenge. I hated the title but loved the article. They interviewed Sergeant Ross, Vanessa, even the lab technician who'd tested my birthday cake. Everyone told their part of the story. When asked what message I wanted to send to other women in dangerous situations, I'd said, "Trust yourself. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone convince you that you're crazy for protecting yourself. And most importantly, gather evidence before you act." They printed that quote on the magazine cover. I framed it and hung it in my office. 2 years after the trial, I was catering a charity event when I ran into someone from my past. Jackson Morris. We'd dated briefly in college before I met Marcus. "Tasha Chen?" He did a double take. "Well, Tasha Holloway. Or are you back to Chen now?" "Chen," I confirmed. "The marriage is definitely over. I heard about what happened. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm not." We talked for hours. He was divorced too. His wife had left him for her CrossFit instructor, much less dramatic than my situation. He made me laugh. Really laugh, for the first time in years. "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" he asked as the event was winding down. "Somewhere other than your own restaurant, I mean. Let someone else cook for you for a change." I hesitated. The old Tasha would have said yes immediately, but the new Tasha, the survivor, the restaurant owner, the woman who'd put her would-be murderers in prison, she needed to be cautious. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." He wrote his number on a business card. "No pressure. Just, if you want to give it a shot, I'll be around." I kept that card in my wallet for 3 weeks before I finally called him. We took it slow. Coffee dates, lunch meetings, long walks where we talked about everything except my attempted murder and his CrossFit instructor. 6 months in, he asked me to meet his parents. I panicked. "It's too soon," I told Keisha. "What if his family is secretly trying to kill me too?" She laughed, but not unkindly. "Not every family is like Marcus's. Some people actually care about each other." "How do you know?" "You don't. That's the scary part, but you can't let what they did to you ruin your chance at happiness. That would mean they won." She was right. Again. I met Jackson's parents. They were normal. Almost aggressively normal. His mother was a retired teacher. His father collected stamps. His sister was a pediatric nurse with 3 kids. No one tried to poison me. No one plotted to steal my inheritance. We just had dinner, like families do. It was the strangest, most wonderful evening of my life. 3 years after the trial, Sergeant Ross called me. "Diana's up for parole," she said. "Given her cooperation and good behavior, she'll probably get it. I wanted to give you a heads up in case she tries to contact you." My blood ran cold. Can she do that? Legally? There's a restraining order, but people violate those all the time. Just be aware. And if she does reach out, call me immediately. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. That night, Jackson found me sitting in my car in the restaurant parking lot, unable to make myself go inside. "Hey," he said gently. "What's wrong?" I told him about Diana's parole. "She can't hurt you anymore," he said. "You're stronger than her, you're smarter than her, and this time, you're not alone." He was right. I wasn't alone. But I still changed all my locks, installed extra security cameras, started carrying pepper spray. Diana was released 4 months later. I braced for contact, for threats, for something. Nothing came. 3 weeks after her release, I was closing up the restaurant when I noticed a woman sitting in a car across the street. Even in the dark, I recognized her profile. Diana. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police. But before I could, she got out of the car and approached. Slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said. I need to say something. You're violating your restraining order." "I know. Call the cops if you want. But please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I listened. "I'm sorry," Diana said, and she was crying. "I know that's not enough. I know nothing I say can make up for what I did, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, because I did it." "Why?" It was the only word I could manage. "Because I loved him. Because I was jealous of you. Because I convinced myself that you had stolen the life that should have been mine." She wiped her eyes. "I know now how sick that was. I've had a lot of therapy in prison. A lot of time to think about the choices I made. You tried to kill me." "I know. You slept with my husband for 16 years. "I know. You pretended to be my friend, my sister." "I know." She was sobbing now. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood there, looking at this broken woman who'd once tried to end my life, and I felt nothing. No rage, no satisfaction, no forgiveness. Just emptiness. "I hope you find peace," I said finally. "But you won't find it with me. Stay away from me, Diana. Don't call, don't write, don't ever contact me again. We're done." I walked to my car without looking back. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. Jackson was waiting at my condo when I got home. "How did it go?" he asked. She apologized. And nothing. An apology doesn't unpoison a cake. It doesn't give me back 16 years. It doesn't make us family again. He pulled me into a hug. "No, but it means you won. Completely. You're free. You're successful. You're loved. And she's not." 5 years after the trial, Jackson and I got married. Small ceremony, just close friends. No family beyond his parents and sister. I wore blue instead of white. We honeymooned in Greece, far from birthday cakes and antifreeze and people who smile while plotting your death. On our last night in Santorini, watching the sunset from our hotel balcony, Jackson asked me if I ever thought about what might have happened if I'd eaten that full slice of cake. "Every day," I admitted. "I think about how close I came. How, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I'd been polite and finished it, I'd be dead. And Marcus and Diana would be living my life." "But you're not dead." "No, I'm not. And they're not living your life. You are." I smiled at that. "Yes, I am." Marcus died in prison 2 years later. Heart attack. The irony wasn't lost on me. His own heart killed him in the end. Diana sent a card to my restaurant. I threw it away without opening it. Constance died in a nursing home 6 months after her release. No one came to the funeral except her court-appointed guardian. I didn't go. I sent flowers instead. White lilies, the kind people send when they're supposed to care. Now, at 50, I run 3 successful restaurants. I'm married to a man who would never dream of hurting me. I have stepchildren who call me mom and actually mean it. I have friends who would hide bodies for me if I asked, though I never would. And most importantly, I have myself. The woman who trusted her instincts. The woman who gathered evidence. The woman who survived. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that birthday cake. About the antifreeze. About how easily they could have gotten away with it. But then I remember. They didn't get away with it. Because I didn't let them. That's the lesson I want to leave you with. If something feels wrong, a relationship, a situation, a piece of birthday cake, trust that feeling. Investigate it. Protect yourself. Don't be polite at the expense of your own safety. Don't stay quiet when something dangerous is happening. Don't let anyone convince you that you're crazy for wanting to live. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, remember. Gather evidence, trust yourself, and fight back. Because you deserve to blow out candles on your next birthday, and the one after that, and every single one that follows. The morning after Diana's parole violation appearance, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Sergeant Ross. My stomach dropped before I even checked the voicemails. Mrs. Chen, this is urgent. Diana Holloway was found dead this morning. We need you to come to the station immediately. You're not in trouble, but we need to establish your whereabouts last night after your encounter. I sat on the edge of my bed, Jackson still sleeping beside me, and felt the room spin. Dead. Diana was dead. Part of me waited for relief to flood in. The woman who'd tried to murder me was gone, permanently this time. But instead, I felt hollow. Another life wasted. Another casualty of Marcus's manipulation. At the police station, Sergeant Ross led me to a private interview room. She looked older now, grayer. The years of dealing with humanity's worst had carved deeper lines around her eyes. What happened? I asked. Apparent suicide. Pills and alcohol. She left a note. Ross slid a photocopy across the table. It mentions you. The handwriting was Diana's. Shaky, but legible. Tasha, you were right to turn me away. I tried to build a new life, but everywhere I went, people knew what I'd done. My own parents won't speak to me. I can't get a job. I can't look at myself in the mirror. Marcus destroyed both of us, didn't he? He made me believe that loving him was worth any price. I paid it. You almost did. I'm so tired of paying. I'm sorry I came to your restaurant. I'm sorry for all of it. I hope you're happy. Someone should be. D. I read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. We reviewed the security footage from your restaurant, Ross continued. You left at 10:47 p.m., drove straight home, and your building's security shows you entering your condo at 11:03 p.m. Diana's body was found at 6 a.m. by her halfway house supervisor. Time of death is estimated between 2 and 4 a.m. You're completely in the clear, but I needed to follow protocol. I understand. There's something else. Ross pulled out another document. Diana had been keeping a journal during her incarceration. Her lawyer released it this morning. There are things in there you should know about. The journal was 347 pages long. I took it home and spent the next week reading it, piece by piece, understanding finally how deep the rot had gone. Diana wrote about their childhood. Marcus was 6 years older, always controlling, always demanding. Their mother, Constance, had favored him obsessively, teaching Diana from age 7 that her purpose was to serve her brother, to make him happy, to sacrifice for him. When Diana was 13, Marcus was 19 and home from college. That's when it started. Not love, grooming, abuse masked as affection. He told me I was special, Diana had written, that our love was too pure for others to understand, that Mom knew and approved because she understood we were meant to be together. I believed him. God help me. I believed him until I was 35 years old and sitting in a prison cell. Page after page detailed Marcus's manipulation, how he'd convinced her to sabotage his early relationships, how he'd moved her into their guest house after staging her divorce. There had never been a real marriage, just a fake ceremony to give her a reason to be close. How he'd promised her that once I was gone, they'd finally be free to be together openly. But even then, she wrote, I knew he was lying. Marcus didn't love me. He loved what I did for him, the adoration, the obedience, the willingness to commit murder. When I turned state's witness, I finally saw him clearly. He looked at me like I was garbage, disposable, and I realized that's all I'd ever been to him. The last entry was dated the day she came to my restaurant. I saw Tasha tonight. She's beautiful, successful, free. Everything I could have been if I hadn't wasted my life on Marcus's lies. She looked at me with nothing in her eyes, not hatred, not pity, nothing, and I understood I'm already dead. I've been dead since I was 13 years old. Time to make it official. I closed the journal and cried for the first time since the trial. Not for what Diana had done to me, but for the child she'd been, groomed and broken by a monster. Jackson found me on the couch, the journal clutched to my chest. She was a victim too, I said. Not of the poisoning, but of Marcus. For 22 years, before I even met him. That doesn't excuse what she did to you. I know, but it explains it. and somehow that makes it worse. I attended Diana's funeral. Just me, her court-appointed lawyer, and the funeral director. No one else came. Not even the halfway house supervisor. I placed a single white rose on her casket and said what I needed to say. I forgive you, Diana. Not for you, your past needing that, but for me, so I can finally let this go. Leaving the cemetery, I felt lighter than I had in years. The journal changed something in me. I'd spent 5 years viewing Diana as a villain, a co-conspirator, someone who'd made active choices to destroy me. Learning the truth that she'd been Marcus's victim long before I was shifted my understanding of everything. I started a foundation. The Diana Holloway Memorial Fund for Survivors of Familial Abuse. Every cent of profit from my restaurants beyond what I needed to live comfortably went into it. We funded therapy, legal fees, safe housing for people escaping abusive family situations. The first person we helped was a 22-year-old woman whose stepfather had groomed her since childhood, convincing her they were soulmates. We got her into therapy, helped her file charges, paid for her to finish college across the country where he couldn't find her. When she graduated with honors 3 years later, she sent me a photo of herself in her cap and gown with a note, "You saved my life. Thank you for believing survivors." I framed it and hung it in my office next to the magazine cover. Keisha, who'd stood by me through everything, became the foundation's director. She was fierce, protective, and completely unwilling to let anyone fall through the cracks the way Diana had. "Every person we help is one less tragedy," she told me. "One less funeral with empty chairs." My restaurants became known not just for good food, but as safe spaces. We had a discreet code if someone ordered the special soup that wasn't on the menu. Staff knew to call our foundation hotline. We'd helped dozens of people escape dangerous situations that way. Mrs. Chen, my old neighbor who'd saved my life by retrieving that cake sample, became a regular volunteer. She'd bring groups of seniors to stuff envelopes, make care packages, and knit blankets for our safe houses. "You took something horrible and made it meaningful," she told me once. "That takes real strength." Jackson and I decided not to have children. After what I'd been through, the idea of being pregnant, vulnerable, dependent terrified me. But we fostered teenagers, the ones aging out of the system, the ones nobody wanted. Our first foster daughter, Kennedy, came to us at 16. She'd been bouncing through homes since she was 6, angry and mistrustful, and absolutely certain we'd abandon her like everyone else. It took 8 months before she smiled at me, a full year before she called me Mom without sarcasm. When she turned 18, she asked if we'd officially adopt her. "I know I'm technically an adult," she said, crying, "but I never had a real family. Could I be yours?" The adoption papers were signed a month later. Kennedy Chen Morris, the first of 5 teenagers we'd eventually adopt. On Kennedy's college graduation day, as I watched her walk across that stage to receive her degree in social work, I thought about the alternate timeline, the one where I'd eaten that full slice of cake, where I'd died believing Marcus loved me, never knowing about Diana, never escaping. In that timeline, Kennedy never got adopted. She aged out of the system, struggled, maybe didn't make it. The foundation never existed. All those people we'd helped over the years, they'd still be trapped, or worse. Diana would still be alive but broken, serving her sentence while Marcus manipulated her from his cell. And I'd be in the ground, unmourned by the people who'd claimed to love me. My inheritance funding Marcus and Diana's twisted fantasy. But that wasn't what happened. I'd trusted my instincts. I'd fought back. I'd survived. And in surviving, I'd built something bigger than revenge. I'd built a legacy of helping others survive too. 10 years after the trial, I was invited to speak at a conference on domestic violence and family abuse. The auditorium held 3,000 people. I stood at that podium, looking out at all those faces, and told my story. Not for sensationalism, not for sympathy, but because someone in that audience needed to hear it. When I finished, a woman in her 40s approached me, shaking. "My sister-in-law has been acting strange," she said, "bringing over food, insisting I eat it, asking about my finances. I thought I was being paranoid. But your story. I need to trust my instincts, don't I?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Trust them, and document everything. Get proof before you act." 6 months later, I received a letter from that same woman. Her sister-in-law had indeed been poisoning her arsenic in homemade cookies, administered slowly to simulate a degenerative illness. The woman had installed hidden cameras, caught it on tape, and her sister-in-law was now in prison. "You saved my life," the letter read. "Not just by giving that speech, but by showing me it's not crazy to protect yourself. Thank you." I added that letter to my growing collection. 47 letters now, from 47 people who'd heard my story and escaped their own poisoners. 47 lives I'd saved by refusing to die quietly. On what would have been my 60th birthday, Jackson threw me a surprise party. Not a small dinner, a full celebration at our flagship restaurant, with 200 guests. Keisha gave a speech about how I'd turned trauma into purpose. Kennedy and our other kids presented a video they'd made interviews with people the foundation had helped, talking about their new lives. Mrs. Chen, now 93 and still volunteering weekly, brought a cake, homemade, from her kitchen, made with love. I froze when I saw it. Everyone noticed. The room went silent. Jackson took my hand. "It's safe, love." I watched her make it. No antifreeze, no poison, just sugar and flour and kindness. Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, honey, I should have thought. I'm so sorry. We can throw it away." "No," I said, my voice catching. "No, I want to try. Because here's the thing, they don't tell you about surviving attempted murder. The fear doesn't just disappear. For 10 years, I'd been terrified of birthday cakes, of accepting food from others, of letting my guard down enough to trust. But I'd also learned that healing isn't about eliminating fear. It's about choosing courage in spite of it. I picked up the knife and cut myself a slice. A generous one, with extra frosting, just like Diana had served me all those years ago. The room held its breath. I took a bite. It was delicious, sweet and moist and perfect, no bitter chemical undertaste, no hidden malice, just cake. I ate the whole slice while 200 people cheered. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Jackson was asleep, I stood on our balcony looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Marcus was buried in a prison cemetery, unmourned and forgotten. Diana rested in a pauper's grave, her headstone paid for by my foundation. Constance's plot sat next to her husband's, but no one visited. And I was here, alive, thriving, surrounded by people who actually loved me. I'd won. Not just the court case or the inheritance. I'd won at life itself. My phone buzzed. A text from Kennedy. "Love you, Mom. Thanks for the best birthday party ever. Even though it's your birthday, lol." I smiled and texted back. "Love you too, baby. Get some sleep." Another text, this time from Keisha. "You know what I'm proud of? Not that you survived. That you chose to help others survive too. That's the real victory." She was right. The real victory wasn't putting Marcus and Diana in prison. It wasn't inheriting $4.3 million. It wasn't even building a successful restaurant empire. The real victory was choosing, every single day, to be more than what they'd tried to make me. A victim, a fool, a corpse. I was none of those things. I was Tasha Chen, survivor, entrepreneur, mother, advocate, fighter, and I was still here, eating birthday cake and celebrating life, while my would-be murderers rotted in the ground. On my 65th birthday, I officially retired from running the restaurants, handing them over to Kennedy, who'd proven herself a better manager than I'd ever been. The foundation was now nationally recognized, with chapters in 30 states. We'd helped over 2,000 people escape abusive situations. 2,000 people who might have ended up like Diana, broken and dead, if someone hadn't intervened. I spent my retirement writing a memoir. Not this story, I'd told this story 100 times, but the story of what came after. The healing, the building, the choosing to live fully instead of just surviving. The book became a bestseller, not because of the attempted murder that was just one chapter, but because of everything that followed, the foundation, the fostering, the forgiveness, the birthday cake I'd finally been able to eat. Readers wrote to me constantly, "Your story gave me hope. I left my abuser because of your book. I started a foundation to help trafficking survivors. I adopted a teenager. I ate cake at my birthday, for the first time in 10 years. Every letter reminded me why I'd refused to let Marcus and Diana win. Because winning wasn't about revenge. It was about living so fully, so joyfully, so purposefully that they became footnotes in my story instead of its ending. At 70, I received a letter from a law firm in Atlanta. Uncle Terrence's business partner, who'd managed the estate sale, had recently died. In his will, he'd left me a letter he'd been instructed to deliver when the time was right. I opened it with shaking hands. Dear Tasha, if you're reading this, you survived. I knew you would. When I learned what your husband and his sister were planning, yes, I knew I couldn't intervene directly without exposing myself, so I did something else. I delayed the estate settlement. I made sure that certified letter went to your house, knowing Diana would intercept it. I gave them just enough rope to hang themselves. You see, your Uncle Terrence told me about Marcus, about his concerns, about how he'd changed his will to ensure you'd be provided for, but worried what would happen when you inherited. We set a trap, Tasha, and you survived it. More than survived, you thrived. I hope you'll forgive an old man for using you as bait, but I knew what you were made of. Your uncle knew too. That's why he left you everything, not because of blood, but because you deserved it. Live well, Tasha Chen. You earned it. James Blackwell. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Uncle Terrence had known. He'd set this entire thing in motion, trusting that I'd be smart enough, strong enough to survive the test. And I had been. I framed that letter and hung it in my study, next to the magazine cover and Kennedy's graduation photo, and all 47 letters from people I'd helped save. Evidence of a life well lived. Evidence that surviving isn't enough, you have to build something from the ashes. Evidence that I'd taken Marcus's attempt to end my story and transformed it into the beginning of something beautiful. Jackson died peacefully in his sleep at 78. I was 73. We'd had 33 years together, 33 years of love that was real, not poisoned, not manipulative, not hiding anything sinister beneath the surface. At his funeral, all 5 of our adopted children spoke. So did 17 grandchildren. So did hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by our foundation, our restaurants, our simple insistence on choosing kindness over cruelty. Standing at his graveside, I thought about Marcus's funeral. I hadn't gone, but I'd read the report. 3 people attended, his prison chaplain, the warden who was required to be there, and 1 former business associate who'd come out of morbid curiosity. Jackson's funeral overflowed the church. We had to set up speakers outside for the hundreds who couldn't fit. That's the difference between a life built on lies and a life built on truth. One ends in an empty room. The other ends celebrated. I'm 81 now. My hands shake when I write, and my knees ache when it rains, but my mind is sharp. Sharp enough to remember everything, sharp enough to understand what it all meant. Last week, I visited the cemetery where Diana is buried. Her grave is well tended now, the foundation maintains it, along with graves of other abuse victims who died without family to mourn them. I placed flowers on her headstone and said what I'd needed to say for 40 years. You were a victim too, Diana. I see that now. Marcus poisoned you long before you ever tried to poison me. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I saved others in your name. I hope that means something, wherever you are. Walking back to my car, past rows of headstones marking lives ended too soon, I felt grateful. Grateful for the bitter taste that warned me. Grateful for the antifreeze bottle left carelessly on the counter. Grateful for my instincts that screamed danger when everyone else said I was paranoid. Grateful for Keisha and Sergeant Ross and Mrs. Chen and everyone who believed me. Grateful for every single day I'd lived past age 40, when I was supposed to have died eating poisoned cake at my own birthday party. They'd tried to end my story. Instead, they'd given me a reason to live it more fully than I ever had before. That's the final lesson I want to leave. Surviving isn't the ending, it's the beginning. What you do with your survival, that's what matters. I could have spent 40 years bitter and afraid, and no one would have blamed me. Instead, I chose to build, to love, to trust again, carefully but genuinely, to turn my trauma into purpose and my pain into power. I helped 2,000 people escape abuse. I raised 5 children who'd been thrown away by society. I loved and was loved by a good man for 3 decades. I built a business empire from the ashes of attempted murder. I ate birthday cake again. I chose joy. That's how you win against people who try to destroy you. not by destroying them back, though justice matters, but by living so completely, so triumphantly, that they become nothing but a cautionary tale in your magnificent story. Marcus and Diana tried to write my ending. Instead, they became footnotes in a story about survival, redemption, and the unbreakable human spirit. I win. I won. I will always win. Because I'm still here, and they're not. And every day I breathe is another day they failed.